School violence, the so-called Iljin, was no longer something teachers could handle, but even then, they become infinitely subservient to Iljin, who were stronger than themselves. It was the main topic of the project named Iljin in charge of Iljin. They were going to put in a stronger team that was only responsible for the Iljin in secret, a project to control Iljin through Iljin. The lady concluded her report with this. One of the officers groaned in protest, but the chairman called it fun and inquired if there was a person who was capable of taking care of the Iljin. Elsewhere, a nerdy-looking guy tried to read a book but couldn't concentrate. The boss lamented that today's young people seem to lack passion. The part-timer had been considering quitting his qualification exams and part-time jobs, regretting his decision to drop out of school. He yearned for a place to alleviate his stress. Outside the store, some bullies were attempting to extort money from a boy and mocking him. The boss asked the person trying to extort money to stop bullying and buy him cigarettes. Frightened, the boy and a girl headed into the store. Observing their approach, the boss made an excuse and left the scene. The nerdy guy was requested to provide 2 packs of Mobius cigarettes, but he realized they were just high schoolers and questioned whether they understood their actions. Asking for their IDs, they refused, and the girl labeled him as mean. The delinquent took out some money and put 2 bottles of drinks on the table. When he asked for their IDs again, the guy grew furious, threatening to harm him. The boss, observing it all, considered that a similar situation had happened to him and contemplated calling the police but didn't want to disrupt the neighborhood. He emerged from hiding and instructed them to resolve the matter outside. At the back of the shop, the delinquent again threatened the nerdy guy while gripping his collar. The cashier asked the delinquent to release him, providing them with 3 seconds. Amid the girl's giggles, the countdown commenced, leaving the guy bewildered at the cashier's calm demeanor. When the delinquent attempted to slap the cashier, he was swiftly rendered unconscious. The girl tried to wake him, but the guy remained in a daze, wondering why the cashier appeared unharmed and labeling him as cowardly. He asserted that if they fought fairly, he wouldn't stand a chance, and whispered to the girl to call for reinforcements. She replied that she couldn't hear him and asked him to speak louder. Angrily, the guy shouted for her to summon the others, and she ran off to comply. The delinquent inquired why the cashier didn't recognize them, considering they lived in the same town. The cashier placed his hand on the delinquent's shoulder and inquired about his age. When the delinquent refused to answer, the cashier exerted pressure, forcing him on his knees and admitting that he was 17. The cashier warned him not to purchase cigarettes again, or he might die. As the delinquent's companions arrived, they questioned why he was kneeling in front of the part-timer. A burly man, O.D. Han from Nadong High School, introduced himself and attempted to attack the cashier but fell unconscious with a single strike from the cashier. The girl, taken aback by this, wondered if Dehan had fainted upon being hit. The cashier informed them he couldn't stay long and instructed them to approach him collectively. They all charged, only to be swiftly dispatched by a single blow. The first delinquent attempted to retrieve a glass bottle but was subdued once again. Only the boss of the delinquents remained, and the cashier inquired if he intended to fight or not. Observing the cashier, the boss recognized his identity and inquired whether he was Kwon Dae-jeon, someone who had attended the same school as him. The girl then asked if he was the leader of the Incheon area, recounting the rumor that Kwon Dae-jeon had dismantled the Incheon area, which was in the age of blood 2 years ago within a week. The boss humbly apologized, sought forgiveness, and vowed it wouldn't happen again. Kwon cautioned him about the noise and asked what should they do about the guys who passed out. The boss asked if it's hospital, then he will do it on his own so that he won't bother him. Kwon told him not the hospital and made them wake up and told them to put their head on the ground. He warned them that if they come to the convenience store one more time and act like a dog, then it will be really all over, and asked if everyone understood. The group responded in unison with a resounding yes. He proceeded toward the store but was intercepted by a lady who wished to talk, which he declined. The lady offered a suggestion and handed him her company's card, known as the Golden Dragon Education Foundation. Back at their meeting, the chairman was surprised that she had already made contact and asked if Kwon had accepted her offer. Standing outside the high school, Kwon couldn't believe that he was about to start high school at the age of 20. Kwon inquired about the purpose of the project Iljin in charge of Iljin, seeking to understand if it implied that one Iljin held authority over others. The lady confirmed his interpretation emphasizing that Iljin would indeed oversee their own kind. She expressed confidence in Kwon's abilities based on his past performance. Kwon couldn't help but wonder if they were orchestrating such operations behind the scenes while operating the Education Foundation. The lady informed Kwon that they had conducted a background check on him and cautioned against posturing as strong. She recognized that he couldn't afford to decline this opportunity and that it wasn't the time to boast about past achievements. Instead, it was a chance to make amends for prior mistakes. Inside the school, students were curious about the new guy, and their teacher instructed them to return to their seats. In one classroom, a bully playfully rode on a fellow student's back and proposed that his friend accompany him to get some bread. The friend jokingly referred to him as the bread shuttle and inquired if the new transfer student would be arriving today. The bully, Bang Ho-jong, held the position of Jumryong High School president and explained that he enjoyed his friend's shuttle service. Recalling an incident involving Park Juri, he teased her, causing her to hit him and claim it was a mistake. Bang emphasized the need for consideration so he could focus on getting his bread. The teacher entered the classroom and instructed Kwon to enter and stop lingering. He raised his voice to silence the class and ordered them to sit down. Kwon introduced himself, and the sight of the handsome transfer student left the class astounded. Ho Jung-juri began adjusting her makeup. Bang Ho-jong pitied Kwon, predicting he'd face a beating from day one. The teacher directed Kwon to a vacant seat left by a student who had dropped out and asked a nearby student, Kim Min-soo, to assist him with the Korean class. Kwon sat down and greeted his partner, while Bang approached from behind and slapped Kim Min-soo on the head. Bang assumed that Kwon's partner would now take care of his bread duties. Kim explained that he couldn't do it because he had a class right after consultation time. Bang's friend laughed at Kim's refusal, and Bang mocked him for stating the obvious. Bang ordered the class to close their eyes, warning them not to open their eyes or face the consequences. Kwon started to beat Kim. Kwon recalled the words of the lady from Golden Dragon Education Foundation. She told him to follow project confidentiality controls and do not cross the line of violence, do not execute with justification, and do not create witnesses. Kwon complained that there were so many rules and asked what does she want to do when he keeps all this. The lady told him that it's a secret project and she can't help but be careful and if he goes out on his own. But Kwon cut her short and asked if she ever been to school. She replied that school is an animal kingdom with the weak and the strong, and in the animal kingdom, a lion in chains cannot be king of beasts. She asked if he is an ordinary lion. Kwon thought that there were a lot of rules and wondered if she really wants him to do it or not. Interrupting his thoughts, Bang awakened Kwon and inquired why he wasn't closing his eyes. Bang explained that the seat Kwon was occupying was usually reserved for a bread shuttle. Kwon declined the offer to join them, claiming one shuttle was enough. Bang laughed and suggested that Kwon was considering establishing a hierarchy. Bang then told Kwon to go ahead, and he complied. Kwon asked Bang for some money and extended his hand. In response, Bang expressed annoyance, telling Kwon not to point his fingers at him. He teased Kwon, suggesting he didn't receive pocket money from his parents or didn't have parents at all. Infuriated, Kwon confronted Bang, remarking on his rough demeanor and the fact that Bang had initiated the aggression. This angered Kwon, and he told him that his mouth and hands were rough, and Bang was the one who started that first. He then beat Bang to pulp and thought who cared of the ridiculous rules and fists were the law at school. Everyone opened their eyes and fell into confusion as the fight unfolded. After beating him, Kwon told him that he crossed the line and was spitting nonsense for some time. Then he told Bang's friend to come over, but he just stood there confused. Kwon told him that if he didn't then he will. He starts moving towards him and told him to clench his teeth tight. As Kwon approached him, the friend reluctantly prepared to fight. Kwon displayed his agility, dodging the friend's punches. As Kwon was about to land a punch to the friend's face, but he stopped Kwon, saying that he could die. Enraged, Bang attempted to retaliate, armed with a chair. Kwon was eager to face the challenge and welcomed the opportunity for some fun, but he ultimately finished the encounter with a single punch, silencing Bang. When the fight ended, Kwon stood in front of the defeated bullies, inquiring about the allure of cafeteria bread that had triggered the conflict. Bang, slightly humbled, questioned Kwon if he believed he had conquered them all. Kwon corrected him, reminding Bang that he wasn't the boss. Bang claimed that the real boss would soon arrive. Suddenly, another student entered the classroom, and Bang greeted him and called out his name, Manho. Manho asked if this was class reception taking place and expressed doubt about the situation. Kwon wondered if Manho was the person they had placed their faith in and questioned whether he was the leader they had been awaiting. The leader of the Iljins enters the classroom confronting Kwon about his actions on the first day. He surveys the beaten students and inquires if they were all victims of Kwon's aggression. With a tone of anger, he questions why Kwon appears unharmed and suggests that the others didn't even land a single blow. Both individuals stand up, diffusing the tension and avoiding further involvement in the fight. Manho advises Kwon to make a good impression on his first day, while Park inquires about their well-being. Ho-jong wonders if Manho could defeat Kwon in a fight, to which Manho responds that he has no intention of fighting. Kwon observes Manho's body language, noticing his slightly open legs and relaxed shoulders, indicating that he could strike at any moment. Kwon recognizes Manho's deceptive tactics, as he assumes a kickboxing stance ready to attack. Ho-jong acknowledges Kwon's strength but doubts he could win without knowledge of Manho's unique abilities. He signals a student to fetch popcorn for Ho-jong, who becomes infuriated by the student's resistance. Kwon glances back at Ho-jong, feeling intimidated, and suggests that if he wants to eat, he should refrain from ordering students around. Manho contemplates whether the students are still afraid of Ho-jong. As he brushes his hair, Manho criticizes the lack of basic manners in addressing others by name. He introduces himself as No Manho and asks Kwon for his name. Before Kwon can respond, Manho launches an attack. Kwon manages to defend himself, but then Manho fakes a move towards his groin and swiftly pinches him in the face. Ho-jong and Jongmin celebrate Manho's tactics, highlighting that Kwon, being a transfer student, is unaware of his predictable patterns. Frustrated, Kwon realizes that Manho is both hitting and taunting him simultaneously. Manho prepares to strike again, but Kwon retaliates with a kick, throwing Manho against the lockers. Kwon points out that Manho doesn't treat the others in the same manner. Manho confesses that he has learned kickboxing after being defeated by Class 3, making him a formidable opponent. Determined, Manho declares his intention to fight seriously this time and unexpectedly holds a shovel at Kwon. Kwon narrowly dodges it, but Manho closes in, attempting another punch. However, Kwon evades it as well. Manho shouts, trying to distract Kwon by claiming there is an opponent at his side. As Kwon looks, he realizes it was just a normal student. Quickly refocusing, Kwon blocks Manho's attack, expressing his annoyance and asking if the jokes are over. Manho attempts to strike Kwon's eyes, but Kwon retaliates, declaring that he will put an end to it. He pinches Manho, rendering him unconscious and causing him to collapse on the ground. Kwon expresses his frustration at having to fight them again. The onlookers are stunned when Kwon emerges as the victor against Manho. Kwon delivers a kick to Manho, urging him to wake up. He instructs Ho-jong and Jongmin to take Manho to the infirmary. Meanwhile, in the faculty meeting room, the woman who hired Kwon believes that this is a significant day for him. To enhance his performance, a longer than usual teachers' meeting was held. Walking through the corridor, she eagerly anticipates what Kwon will do next and wonders if this marks the end of the Iljin. Noticing the woman, a girl wonders why the director of the planning department is there. Suddenly, another girl taps her on the shoulder and tells her to return to class. In class 1-1, Kwon emphasizes that school is a place for studying, cautioning Manho and others against engaging in childish behavior. He sternly informs them that he can be either a friend or a foe. Kwon advises Ho-jong to stop using people as food delivery workers and not to give orders for others to bring him food. He warns the students that if they continue to tease or bother them, he will dismantle them and rebuild them as entirely new individuals, a wicked smile on his face. In class 1-3, the students watch a video of Kwon's fight with Manho and laugh, comparing it to an entertaining film. Kwon shows the video to a student named Sangbo, asking for his opinion on the transfer student. Sangbo believes that Kwon was lucky to land a punch but remains uncertain about his skills. They mock Manho, suggesting that his only training in kickboxing came after being defeated by Sangbo. Sangbo stands up and proposes checking on Manho's condition. He asks where the punching bag is, and another student appears. Sangbo is surprised and reveals that he was the one responsible for today's punching bag, delivering a powerful blow. Sangbo instructs them to prepare sandbags for lunch and advises everyone to warm up before meeting the transfer student. On the second day of school, Deegan, who once took familiarity for granted and didn't realize how precious it was, now finds it much better than the grind of preparing for qualification exams while working part-time. Kwon sees this as an opportunity to shed his embarrassing past and be reborn as Deegan. As the bell rings, the teacher leaves the class and instructs the students to clean the blackboard as part of their weekly duty. Kwon asks Minsu if he can write the first part during the break from his notes. Ho-jong, feeling hungry and lacking someone to bring him food, expresses his frustration. Kwon looks back at Ho Jong, startling him. Jongmin suggests to Ho Jong that he should go and work out while piggybacking on a student. He suddenly realizes this and asks the student for their name, apologizing for the unintentional ride. Ho Jong complains about the absence of someone to fetch him food. Jongmin mentions that Manho wasn't in a good condition and challenges Kwon to fight outside again. Park questions if they think things will be different outside. Ho Jong wonders if Manho can defeat Kwon outside, and Manho agrees. Park sits in front of Kwon and attempts to impress him, complimenting his performance in yesterday's fight. She playfully offers to teach him Jiu-Jitsu, and Jongmin comments on her similar tone when trying to seduce someone in the past. Ho Jong recalls that she asked him the same thing, but he rejected her. Manho clarifies that hugging is not the same as Jiu-Jitsu. Kwon inquires about the availability of a nearby studio for Jiu-Jitsu, and Park enthusiastically mentions there is one. She offers to teach him other things as well. Kwon attempts to focus on the blackboard, but Park keeps interrupting. When he finally pays attention, Park becomes gloomy, dismisses her earlier comments, and advises Kwon to study diligently to become a great person. She leaves, telling Manho and the others not to think about seeking revenge on Kwon, and to focus on their studies. Manho reflects on the fact that Kwon defeated him to become the leader of Class 1. But Myunjung of Class 2 and Shim Sang-bo of Class 3 are also eager to challenge Kwon. Manho believes he can become the top student in his class without having to fight Kwon again, even though they are strong. Manho explains that if either of the other leaders defeats Kwon, they'll be subordinate to them. Ho Jong agrees that the situation is unfavorable. A newcomer entered the classroom, expressing concern for Manho's well-being. It was Myunjung, the leader of Class 1 to 2. He mentioned that he had heard Manho was looking for him, and Jongmin was surprised by how quickly Jung had responded. Jung inquired whether Manho had gotten any sleep the previous night, and one of his companions explained that Manho had been hit and had gone to sleep immediately. Manho, holding a pen, stood up and indicated that if Jung had come to fight him again, he was prepared to render Jung bedridden once more. Their argument grew louder, prompting Kwon to shout that the noise was making it impossible for him to study. Manho took his seat again, acknowledging that he should focus on studying too. Jung, however, turned his attention to Kwon, recognizing him as the transfer student who had fought Manho. He jokingly said that he would handle Kwon. Ho Jong chimed in, saying that he would rather support Kwon. Jung and his group approached Kwon, who was busy taking notes. Jung questioned one of his companions, asking if he looked like a dog with glasses. Kwon, unfazed, ignored him. Jung grew angry, accusing Kwon of acting deaf after previously complaining about the noise. Jung attempted to prevent Kwon from writing, but Kwon retaliated by twisting Jung's fingers backward. Jung screamed in pain and pleaded with Kwon to stop. Kwon released his grip, warning Jung to let him finish his notes during the break and to avoid any future encounters. Jung, frightened, agreed and said he would support Kwon. Kwon urged him to leave before changing his mind. As Jung and his men departed, Jung suddenly attempted to punch Kwon. Kwon skillfully blocked the punch and slapped Jung, rendering him unconscious. One of Jung's companions tried to revive him without success. Kwon conveyed a threatening message, warning Jung not to mess with anyone, and that encountering Kwon again would lead to dire consequences. Minsu was amazed by Kwon's victory over the notorious Myunjung. Kwon was surprised and remarked that resolving the issue with Class 2 had been easier than he expected. Manho and the others were shocked by the turn of events. Ho Jong decided to forgive Kwon, believing it was better than seeking revenge, while Jongmin thought it was time to stop being a bully and focus on studying. Suddenly, Sang-bo and his group entered the classroom. Ho Jong was shocked and had a sense of déjà vu, questioning why everyone kept lining up. Sang-bo, however, made it clear that he had no interest in them and instructed them to sit down. He and his gang surrounded Kwon. Kwon thinks that he can take notes next time. Sang-bo and his group encircle Kwon and Minsu. Sang-bo expresses his desire to talk to Kwon privately and asks if he can step aside. Sang-bo takes a seat next to Kwon and inquires about his studies and personality. One of the men comments that Kwon appears to be an attractive boy who is popular with girls. Sang-bo introduces himself to Kwon and mentions that he heard about Kwon defeating Manho. He admits that he was concerned that Kwon might become the new leader because of his victory. Kwon interrupts his writing and, removing his glasses, remarks that Sang-bo's loud chatter was distracting him. He instructs Sang-bo to state his purpose since he is busy. Sang-bo, with an intrigued expression, tells Kwon that he appears strong. Kwon Kwon responds by saying that Sangbo looks weak. Sangbo smiles and agrees that Kwon is not an idiot. He leans closer to Kwon and wants him to prepare for their meeting after school because he is not like Manho. Then, Sangbo directs his men to leave. Annoyed, Kwon questions why everyone is treating him this way on his first day, making it seem like he won't have a normal school life. Jongmin warns Kwon about Sangbo's toughness, suggesting that Kwon is in trouble. Park taunts Kwon, asking if he is worried about him now. Kwon admits that he dislikes Sangbo and believes Kwon is superior. Manho stands up and approaches Kwon, stating that he cannot allow it. Park, blushing, asks if Manho wants her to accompany him. Manho declines and attempts to sit next to Kwon, despite Kwon's rejection. Manho asserts that what Sangbo said earlier about him being a skilled fighter is accurate and reveals that Sangbo has been practicing martial arts since middle school. Kwon expresses his lack of interest. Manho insists that he wants to help Kwon, surprising everyone. Kwon questions his motives. Manho explains that he will share Sangbo's attack patterns with Kwon. Kwon states that he doesn't need the information, but Manho continues to offer details, revealing that Sangbo has been involved in boxing but has no interest in formal competitions. In another class, Sangbo removes his shirt, revealing his tattoos. He questions the students about the absence of 3 students and the whereabouts of Sandbag 4. They inform him that Sandbag 4 is in the hospital. Sangbo inquires why he is there and if it's because of him. One frightened student explains that Sandbag 4 likely fell somewhere and it wasn't Sangbo's fault. Intimidating them, Sangbo asserts that he was simply providing them with free exercise and it was their weakness that caused any issues. He cracks his neck and suggests they start working harder. Taking a fighting stance, Sangbo reminds them that it's only enjoyable if they fight him desperately and warns that he will kill them if it's not fun. He commands them to attack, and they make an attempt. Sangbo swiftly knocks one student down with an uppercut and punches another in the abdomen when they desperately try to retaliate. He berates them for not fighting properly and continues to beat them. Looking at them angrily, he admits to hitting them lightly on purpose, but they pretended to lose, so now they must go to the hospital as well. Later, in the school cafeteria, everyone discusses Kwon. Kwon and Minsu sit together, and Kwon expresses his excitement over finally having a school meal after a while. He mentions that he had been eating near expiry date food from the convenience store. The students talk about Kwon's recent victory over Manho and Jung in a single blow, attributing it to luck. One of them mentions hearing about Kwon's upcoming fight against Sangbo. Gu Seung-hwa from class 1 to 7 states that they will find out if it was luck or skill in that fight. Park approaches Kwon, questioning why he is eating alone and suggesting they sit together. Manho and others join them as well. Students from class 1 to 8, including their leader Kwak Dusik, comment that Kwon is already playing with Manho and his gang. Manho encourages Kwon to eat a lot, emphasizing that Sangbo won't go easy on him. Kwon asks Manho why he keeps helping him, and Manho explains that their fight is not over since he previously defeated Sangbo using underhanded tactics. During their fight, Sangbo severely beat Manho. Sangbo grins, stating that he won't stop until Manho's face is covered in blood. Manho attempts to attack Sangbo but receives multiple punches instead. Manho tells Kwon that he managed to corner Sangbo and strike his groin, forcing him to surrender. Manho adds that Sangbo is a skilled out boxer who targets effective areas with his punches. As some students pass by, they discuss the upcoming fight between Kwon and Sangbo, expressing doubt that Sangbo will lose. They playfully throw dried squid onto Kwon's plate, mockingly claiming it was accidental. Kwon, with an angry expression, questions their actions and reminds them that he already apologized, urging them to stop provoking him. As they are about to walk away, Kwon grabs one of their hands and reveals that what they threw at him was not dried squid but bellflower roots.